The life force of your bond. A power like life itself. Unseen for generations. A dyad in the force.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Dyad in the Force, episode 171, the one about Anakin and the Jedi Order again. Shout out to everybody in the chat for joining us. We've just we're just coming in from the pre-show talking about Kool-Aid, Vegemite, durian, and some really whacked out and potent foods that are just, I guess, you know, an acquired taste. Although the length of time that is required to acquire remains to be seen. It's dependent on everybody. Krista said, I heard the key to Vegemite is very little and a lot of butter, which means you're just spreading butter. And
yeah, you like butter. Just say you like butter.
How's it going, Choco?
Good. That's just reminding me again of my wife, who's like, oh no, doesn't like things that taste too much like the thing it is. So if she's eating chicken and it tastes too much like chicken, she doesn't like it.
That's strange. I mean, it's chicken.
I don't know. I don't know how to fix that.
I don't know how chicken can taste more like chicken or more chickeny.
It's yeah. Yep. I've adjusted. I don't know how it works, but it do.
Craig Winger says the intro was Earth's equivalent of a death stick addiction. Yeah, it's powerful, you know. How's it going, chatting time? It's been a while.
Chatting. Man, I love seeing a video of yours pop up. Just out of nowhere, since we got some more Grievous action going on. Yeah, miss you, buddy.
First time seeing that intro. Oh yeah, you know, you have to be there. You have to be here at the right moment to see it, because we kind of at the stroke of 5, we're usually on a starting soon card, and everybody leaves until we come back. Thanks for the like, Elias. I'm Canadian, so I've never had it. Just spreading wisdom, I've heard. Still, like the people that speak volumes for Vegemite usually just say, freaking dollop that stuff on your toast, and I'm like, I can't get past like a small like speck, and you're telling me that more of that speck in large quantities is a better experience. Yeah. Master James says makes us stronger. Does it? Are you referring to Vegemite?
Don't worry, I'm here to defend the truth of the Jedi's failure. Happy to see y'all. Yeah, I mean, we just want to have a discussion, and you know, there's a video that kind of prompted some discussions, and there's some odd takes. So we want to get down to the bottom of it, figure out where some of this stuff comes from, why it is what it is.
Yeah, Zane switching over to the YouTube side, switching over to here. Dexon, shout out to Dexon Download. Don't worry, I'm here to defend the truth of the Jedi's failure. Happy to see y'all. Dexon, you know, if you want to call in, definitely call in. We certainly don't want this to be a one-sided discussion, although when Master Alan call in, it will become a triple one-sided discussion. You guys are on Apple Podcasts? We are, indeed. Not me thinking your show normally starts at 7. I mean, in some cases it does. In Central, I believe. Right? 5, 6, 7? Yeah.
Yes, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern.
That will only make me stronger. Nah, that's not how the dark side works. Tommy P says the false notion that Jedi forbid feeling emotions is still alive and well, unfortunately. That's also true. It's one of the most among the top misconceptions of Star Wars. It's gray Jedi. You can't have emotions. And the Jedi are entirely to blame for Order 66. Or no. Balance in the Force is equal parts Jedi, equal parts Sith. That's number 3. What are your 3? That's just whenever it rears its head, you're just like, why is this a thing still?
That Anakin should have been made a master. Anything that doesn't factor in Palpatine and counterplay. And lightsaber colors.
Yes, lightsaber colors is a thing as well. Craig McGuinn says the Jedi fear knowledge about the dark side and say fear leads to the dark side. They do not fear the knowledge. They hold it in very, very high regard in terms of who should be able to study it. That's why it's that's why stuff about the dark side and like masks and artifacts are in their vaults, and only Jedi Masters can access them, because it's not like that's forbidden, and they fear that like we like Blade, Rise of the Red Blade, they recover a dark side artifact, and that the Padawan is drawn to it, and it's like bathing them, and so there's no fear in caution. So when a Jedi becomes a master and they're able to show that independence, that clarity of mind, they're given access to the vaults.
I mean, I don't know. There's certain things that like kids probably shouldn't do until they're old enough to understand, and this is no different than that. This is just a form of that. They aren't forbidden from it, but they are wait until they're ready to access it. That's it.
Yeah, you can't smoke until you're 18. Can't drink until you're 21. Trent on the YouTube side says, "What up? What up?" I don't know, Trent. What's up with you? I think they fear it in a sense. It is forbidden to most Jedi. Yeah, I mean,
what? So my question is, where is that coming from? Where are you getting that? I think a great example is with Count Dooku, right? They had the Bogan collection, a whole collection of dark side artifacts. They had Jedi there that studied it. Sifo Dyad's master was one of them. And people could go up and go in there. They just didn't want like children, literal children, getting involved with artifacts that could physically harm them. Can you imagine like a little kid gets in there and then puts on Momin's mask? You know what I mean? Like bad things would happen.
I'm just picturing Chucky. Can you imagine Chucky?
Yeah, that's exactly what it would be. All right, so the Jedi Order might collect it, but they fear to let it into the hands of those who are not trained and prepared. So, but that's not fear of the object. That's fear. That's fear for the safety of the individual. That's a very different thing.
Also, these sentiments are also presupposing that, again, the Jedi teach not to have emotions, because the Jedi can fear as well.
That is true.
The statement fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering, and then it leads to the dark side. These are cautionary words, but it's like the Jedi can fear things, It's not going
Yeah.
to lead to the dark side, like a lot
It's
of
also
the books say.
like it's a process. It's not like I'm afraid of something. No, I'm angry. No, I'm Sith. You know?
Yeah.
You know, it's if you are let that emotion drive you and drive your actions, you're gonna end up into a place
Yes,
of
it has.
hatred. And then if you let hatred guide you, and then eventually, you know, it's a slippery slope type of deal. But no, the Jedi feel fear all the time. You know, that's where courage comes from, is overcoming fear to do the right thing. But once again,
Facing your fears.
what you described as fear for the safety of the individual. Just like if there's a child around, I'm not going to leave glass. You know, if I have a dog, right? My dog Suki. If I'm eating chocolate, I won't leave it around because I'm afraid she'll get into it. I'm not afraid of chocolate.
Yeah, we are playing semantics, but we're also kind of
Are we? I don't think that's semantic.
well, nuance is semantic to a degree, but what we're saying is just because the Jedi feared for dark side artifacts to affect the children in their care did not mean that they were going against the very tenet of, you know, fear itself being something that they should avoid. Like Luke says to Rey in Rise of Skywalker, you know, facing your fears is the destiny of all Jedi. Because it's
so. And
inherent.
I apologize if I misrepresented what you were trying to say. That's not my goal. I do want to figure out exactly what you're communicating, so I can so we can take a look at that.
Cubcos in TikTok says, I feel like people think if a Jedi is afraid of heights, then he will turn to the dark side. I mean, that's the sentiment I get a lot of the times as well. Let's see. Krista says, I believe Yoda means fear in regards to controlling your future, which is exactly the entire point of the Jedi telling you to be mindful of your thoughts, be mindful of your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, they also say to trust your feelings, to stretch out with your feelings, and to use your instincts. But that was never kind of like a oxymoronic statement. It was always like, be mindful of them. They can control you. So it's not like the Jedi were always like, listen, if you start to fear things, you're gonna become a Darksider. The Jedi had always had tenets to, you know, guide people away from the deliberate path. And like the books say, the path to the dark side is deliberate. It's not a bad day or a series of bad days. It's not like again, as Krista says, it's not like if you are afraid of spiders as a Jedi, then you will turn into Darth Arachne. I'm thinking about the Destiny exotic Serta Arachnia, or Serta Arachne.
Serta Arachne's mask.
Yeah,
Love that exotic. Speaking of spiders, man, I've been watching I'm a Spider, So What? And that's a great show.
I gotta check. Where's that at? I gotta check that out.
It's Crunchyroll. It's an isekai of. I started to get sick of isekais of the weird sexual nature. That a lot of them
did you check out The Unwanted Undead?
Not yet. Not yet.
It's really good.
But no, this one was. I was like, oh well, the protagonist is a female, so we probably won't have that at least on the same level. So I'll give it a shot. And yeah, it's about a girl who her entire class was sent into this other realm, and you're figuring out why and what happened. Almost everyone in her class came back as a human. She comes back as a spider at the very bottom of this deep dark dungeon, and it just has to like start fighting and like killing things to get stronger so she can survive. But she's like the cutest little spider you've ever seen, and it animates her being super cute. And it's funny because as you watch the story and they progress, they start connecting, and so you'll see her perspective where she's like this super cute little spider, and she's like, oh, I'm so embarrassed, and she's like rolling around because she did something embarrassing, like, you know, cute Japanese style. And then it swaps perspectives to the other people who are seeing this monster spider writhing on the ground, just going rah, rah, rah. And they're like, oh my god, what is it's funny.
What is it called again?
It's like so what I'm a spider, I think is what it's called.
Dexton says that's why we Sith. We Sith. It's like for sports teams. It's like, oh yeah, we won yesterday. I was like, bro, you were on the couch. We are terrified of the idea of not being around or of letting others make us do what we don't want. Fear comes from ego. To an extent, fear can come from anywhere. But most of all, fear comes from self-preservation. Zane says, when I think of the failure of the Jedi Order as it relates to Anakin, I think of parenting. The role of a master to Padawan is a bit of a parental role. If you've got the chosen one in your midst, maybe pay attention to their upbringing, be open to them. If your child is a bully or being bullied and you're unaware, that's on you for not fostering that open relationship for communication.
That's true. I mean, that's a good point.
But there's a two-way street.
I just would like to point out, especially after reading Brotherhood, there's a part because that whole book starts with Anakin being promoted to a knight. He is no longer he is no longer Obi-Wan's Padawan at that point in time. He is considered his own man. He does not have someone over him. He can make his own decisions and do his own stuff. And so at the end of that story, Obi-Wan can kind of tell that there's something he's holding back. And throughout the whole book, he's made himself available and open so that if Anakin chooses to confide in him, he can. But at the end, he has to trust, like, Anakin knows what's right and he knows what's wrong, and he's strong enough and smart enough to make the right decision. He hoped. So, like, at some point, you're right, there is a parental relationship there, but if I start doing stuff right now, are my parents responsible for that? Or because I'm a grown-ass man, does that no longer, you know what I mean? I'm no longer under their roof or under their supervision. And at that point, how much of it is them and how much of it is on me?
Yep, that's true. The point I was trying to append to that was it's a two-way street also. Even if you were to find a way to make Choco's parents responsible for his actions, it would behoove Choco to communicate that. In the same vein of, if your child is a bully or being bullied and you're unaware, that's on you.
That absolutely.
But it's also on the child too to, you know, be honest about that. I mean, it's really difficult to be truthful about it, but it's not completely on you to know what is unknown. Like, you could do your best to check on your child every night. How was school? Or, you know, are you making friends, whatever? If your child's not being forthright, you're not responsible for that. You know, you could dig deeper, you can reach out more, but at the end of the day, the child has to disclose that.
Also, and that's why I actually really hate it, because I there's something I hear a lot of times. It's like, if only the Jedi would have gotten Anakin some therapy, things would have been better. And it's not a wrong statement to make, but like, can you make someone else do therapy? Is that a thing? Like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, we'll get to deeper conversation on this because I still have my hot take question. But Jackson says, as someone that as a child suffered from bipolar and anger issues, when I told my parents I was thrown into a mental hospital, and it hurt me more, so I feared opening up a lot. And quite frankly, the onus is on your parents at that point for their response to it. But that's neither here nor there for the Jedi and Anakin. You know? That was your parents' response. That doesn't make it the Jedi's assumed response to Anakin reaching out for help.
But that sucks. I'm sorry, man.
But also, again, with nuance, we point to Palpatine, who is the other side of this conversation, who is gaslighting Anakin and making him not want to talk to the Jedi. Want to talk to him. But we'll get there because I want to do this.
But he's the literal chosen one. Sorry. I say when that is used, he's the literal chosen one. That's funny.
I do want to do this segment really quickly, just for content's sake. So I will just prompt us really quickly, and then we'll talk about it for a few minutes. So this is part of our lore segment. Here we go. Everything you know about Star Wars is wrong. On today's video, lightsaber color meanings. Choco, do lightsaber colors have any meaning?
Yes.
Intrinsically.
Sorry, I know it's not what you're looking at saying, but no, the meanings that most people ascribe to them is utterly false. They have meaning in such that if the crystal bonds with you, it'll take a color, but that color doesn't inherently mean a specific thing. It also has meaning in that a red crystal is a lightsaber crystal that has been bled, and a white crystal is one that has been purified. But beyond that, there's no Jedi mood rings. It doesn't mean, oh, I'm a sentinel because of this, and that means that I do this. No, that's never been a thing. When Ahsoka was young, she didn't mostly use the Force because she had 2 green lightsabers. And by the way, her 2 green lightsabers weren't the same color. Yep. Quinlan Vos had a green lightsaber. He was not mostly Force-based. He's a very physical dude. When Ahsoka had blue lightsabers from Anakin, it didn't mean that she had to fight different, and now that she uses white, it doesn't make her a different person.
Yeah, and then we're filming this live right now, and we do have actually pertinent statements in the chat that kind of lends to why we are saying we're doing a video on this. In Legends, I think so. In canon, no, I believe. And then another chatter, Jackson Download, says EU had Consular, Sentinel, and Guardian. That is wrong.
Okay.
These are classes in Star Wars: The Old Republic, but and then we'll get to the origin of this thinking. If you were to create a Sentinel, a Consular, a Sage, a Shadow, any type of class, a Marauder, Assassin, it didn't matter because you could change your color of your lightsaber. You could be a Consular and use an orange crystal. You could be a Sage and use a blue crystal. But where did that come from, Choco?
I mean, the oldest origin of it was the tabletop RPGs for Star Wars back in the day. And the only reason any of those names were ascribed something was so that you could put skill points and do things differently, right?
Yes.
That was never an actual part of Star Wars. Now, in KOTOR, you would actually go to the Jedi Enclave on Dantooine, and you would take a test, and you would answer questions. And if it turned out you were going to be more physical, then you would get a blue lightsaber, and they'd say you're a Guardian. And then you could get a green one, they'd say you're a Consular, and all that. And of course, this is all in the expanded universe. But did those actually have any meanings? So like a lot of people quote that because yes, that is a thing that happened in those games, but those colors have no meaning. By the time you get to Dantooine, you have a bunch of different lightsaber crystals. I still used one yellow one and one purple one throughout that entire thing. They hand you a crystal and you don't have to use it. So basically, if you saw someone with a blue lightsaber, you still didn't know how they were going to fight because there's no requirement. There's nothing actually linking this to that. If that makes more sense.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. The only crystal, the only color in canon or in Legends, if we're thinking about truly substantial narrative statements, because we can't take statements from interviews as canon or otherwise, is a yellow lightsaber. And even then, it does not have a particular meaning that is stationary or remains the same across each person. The meaning of a yellow lightsaber within the order was that of detachment from identity, where you would serve as a Jedi Temple guard and you would wear a mask, and that made you a guard. But it did not have an intrinsic meaning as to who you were, because of course that the entire ritual of detaching yourself from your identity, it would be counterintuitive to that end.
Yeah. And then and so Daxon Download in a chat says, well, Guardians got a force jump attack, the other and the other states for others where there was a few minor mechanics involved. And you're right, there's differences between the classes that you could select in the video game, but your lightsaber color has nothing to do with any of that.
Yeah, you could change that color and still get that jump attack.
Could you imagine if you swapped to a green lightsaber and you tried to jump and it was like, nope,
no, you have to go back.
Legs
to blue.
don't work.
So all in all, you know, that's all we're trying to say is that the mechanics of the game, assuming your role based on the color it gave you, based on that test, was purely arbitrary. You could always change your color, and changing your lightsaber color did not affect the gameplay of your class when moving forward. And the only meaning that was attributed to any color was yellow as a temple guard for identity. And that also brings to question why Rey was yellow, but that's another video. Yeah. Anyways, that'll do it for this. Everything you knew about Star Wars is wrong.
Now, I do have a question for you, though, Element. And it's coming from Blue Eagle Gamer, or I'm rephrasing it, what he's saying into a question. Doesn't the non-canon show Visions have an episode toying with the idea of color reflecting the user? Not making an argument, just forgot. And so, yes, that's the 9th Jedi from season 1 of Star Wars Visions. And it was one of my favorite episodes. I thought it was amazing, personally. But I'm curious how you feel about the concept that was introduced in that, where it's like it's a Jedi mood ring. You know, we see someone fall to the dark side and have their lightsaber change to red, get knocked some sense to them, and have it change back. What do you think?
I mean, it's a fun concept. I think it more lines up with how I feel about lightsaber color meanings. In the broadest sense, yes, it does reflect the user. What we're arguing against is that it's a very rigid and categorical meaning.
Oh,
but
I have a question for you. What does purple mean?
It could mean, like, in our sense of what canon says about lightsaber crystals, it could mean any number of things. So when we say lightsaber colors have no meaning, we're just arguing against it giving you a prescribed class and role. But lightsabers and colors do have meaning in the sense that it does bond with the user and reflects what the user is feeling. In this sense, the mood or the whatever, in the Ninth Jedi, but it's more akin to how canon views lightsaber colors. Does it have meaning, intrinsic meaning to the person and who it's reflecting? Yes. It just doesn't mean you're a guardian. It just has a meaning that's based on how it bonds with the person. The one thing that I like to point to is how Anakin changed Ahsoka's lightsabers to blue. It was something that he wanted to do, and Dave Filoni confirmed this much. He changed it, and that was it. And Ahsoka, therefore, using it going forward didn't really change colors. But again, when you have a certain color, it says something about you. What that says about you isn't Guardian, Consular, or Sentinel. It says something that is deeply personal to you, that you know. And as an outside audience, and this is another video in general, but I think about Rey and the yellow lightsaber and how it historically symbolized detachment from identity for Temple Guards. I think that has a narrative, there's a narrative symbolism there, because although she chooses Rey Skywalker, she has no identity. She chose it.
And the color, the specific color is called yellow optimism, and I think it's fitting. It's just very fitting for her.
Yeah, in the sense that the colors have names, we could certainly attribute the overall, I suppose, idea of it to the colors of lightsabers. But again, the colors did not mean that you were a Sentinel, Guardian, or Consular, or Shadow. It's all arbitrary.
And personally, I would absolutely hate if that were the case. And here's why. I think storytelling should allow characters it should be character driven first, and your character should be able to grow and expand and become who they are. You know, I think you can see someone who's young and brash just run into things head first and have that be a character flaw. And then as they get older and as they get wiser and stronger, they can stop doing that. But I don't think it should be, indicated, by a lightsaber color. And I don't think it should be static. I don't think if you rolled a blue lightsaber, you should be forced to fight the same way. I think that would be doing the characters and the storytelling a disservice as well.
Yeah, and not to be facetious, but that would mean in the battle at Petranaki, if someone threw a lightsaber at Anakin for him to just use temporarily and it wasn't his color, he'd be like, "Dude, I can't use this. I'm a guardian." Give me a blue one! Hurry!
That actually would be hella funny if he was tossed the green one and then he goes to jump and he just can't, and he's like, "God damn it!"
In the end, we do have to recognize that a lot of it is gameplay mechanics. Cal using the dark side and being pulled out of it at the end of Survivor does not mean he's a great Jedi. In the same vein, in KOTOR, having the ability to go into the dark side just enough to get lightning and then going back is not something that happens in Star Wars. It's just for fun. And we all know that it is fun. We're not telling you not to have fun, but it's not the lore.
Yeah. But the one, and I was kind of trying to lead you, is there's a lot of people who believe that Mace Windu had a purple lightsaber because he uses the dark side, and purple is blue mixed with red, and therefore, and you're like, no, he doesn't.
Yes.
Who told you he uses the dark side? I'm curious who said that.
Also, that would also require him to have had a blue one, like as his Jedi color to begin with. But who says that? He could have He could have bonded and gotten green, and what? You're adding red to green. That doesn't equal purple.
It makes like a brownish color if you're mixing paint, you know. But like, and the vast majority of the expanded universe, like volume wise, like the most stuff was all post original trilogy, right? And in the post original trilogy, you had a ton of different lightsaber colors. Corran Horn had a purple lightsaber. Was he using the dark side? No. Sorry, scratch that. He had a silver lightsaber. His blade was silver. However, when he twisted the handle, because it was made out of a speeder bike grip, it would turn purple and go like 6 feet long and be like a big, great sword type of thing. Then it didn't change how he behaved. We have people like Jaina or Mara Jade use purple lightsabers.
Krista asks, can I ask us an offshoot question? Go for it,
absolutely. Krista. Lobaka had a bronze lightsaber. What does that do? Does that just make him act silly? What's that? I don't know what that's supposed to mean. But no, it's just it didn't matter, and it was never a thing.
Yeah, I think for the most part, lightsaber colors having meaning, an intrinsic meaning to the user as a reflection of the user is very narratively potent, but it pigeonholing them into a certain role and acting a certain way or making them fight a certain way for all of time, it seems very rigid, and you write yourself into a corner.
What's interesting is in the expanded universe, the kyber crystals weren't the other type of lightsaber crystal, right? There's a ton of different crystals that you could use. Mace Windu's in particular, he got on the planet Hurricane. Basically, there's a rock species that he antagonized, made one of them chase after him. He jumped over this fat chasm, and then the rock monster thing tried to jump over the same chasm and didn't make it and broke. And instead of leaving, he went down and he fixed them. He put them back together piece by piece, and as a gift, they gave him a purple crystal to use in his lightsaber. But that's how he got it, right?
I smell profit.
Sayonara Maya Kanyoye. Super Shattered as $6.27. Ramen Drop. I recall Samuel L. Jackson specifically requested a purple lightsaber from Lucas when first cast as Mace. Not an original or fixed character concept.
Yep, yeah. That's all it comes down to.
That's part.
Thank you for the ramen drop.
I love that scene so much though, because Mace, because Samuel was like, "Hey, what color lightsabers are there?" And Drew's is like, "Oh, well, the good guys get either green or blue, and the bad guys get red." And it's like, how about purple? Maybe we'll do purple. I love it. And he just wanted to be able to see himself in the big battle scene, because he would be the only person there with a purple lightsaber.
Krista asks, do you prefer the old synthetic crystals for Sith or that they get bled? 100% bled. It has a lot more meaning.
I have two feelings about it. One is the same as him, right? Because it's a specific thing, and what it adds to lightsaber lore itself, I think, is more meaningful, right? Because the crystals themselves are semi-sentient, and they form a connection, and so in order to make them serve the dark side, you have to dominate them, right? That's just like you are doing to the Force itself. You are dominating the Force and using it as a tool to serve you, rather than using it as an ally and allowing it to flow through you and be a natural, have that natural connection, right? I think what it adds intrinsically to Star Wars as a whole is a lot greater now. But that being said, the synthetic crystals was also an interesting concept of like the Sith aren't naturally getting theirs. But it also doesn't mean that a Jedi can't use a red lightsaber, right? Luke had a red Shoto, Adigalia used red lightsabers, and like you could be a Jedi and use synthetic crystals, and it didn't mean anything.
Yeah, for me, it's more of the mysticism portion of Star Wars. The synthetic crystals, yes, lends to the very artificial nature of Sith power and conjuring it, and subjugating the Force in a way that is unnatural. But where that falls through the cracks for me is the ability to synthesize crystals, the ability to synthesize or create something that is so profound as a kyber crystal that is naturally occurring, that is kind of part of the Force. It is almost suggesting that you could create a Force entity in that way.
Said my 2 credits in the chat. There's so many funny things that become a happenstance that evolve to lore, like the Mace thing, or Sifo Dyas being a Sidious misprint in a in a script. And yeah, absolutely. Like, think about A New Hope. Obi-Wan specifically says, like, only stormtroopers are this precise. Like, they are crack shots. They're awesome at what they do. And when you watch that movie, the only reason they escape is because the stormtroopers let them go because they put a tracker on their ship and they wanted to follow them back to their base. But because they couldn't hit anyone, it became part of the zeitgeist that they're just bad at shooting. And they're just like bumbling idiots, and that just became a thing. Although that didn't come from anywhere, and it's the exact opposite of what was intended, and it just like becomes a thing.
Of course, it wasn't intended. Like, how can you write only a stormtrooper is so precise, and then like create that zeitgeist of they can't hit anything? It's literally, you know, antithetical, not antithetical. Yeah. It's the antithesis of what you were trying to accomplish.
Christopher says, I'm so happy they made Sifo Dyas his own character. What's my favorite thing? Okay, I have a weird love for Sifo Dyas because he's not ever directly a character. He's always this adjacent character. You know what I mean? Like, he has so much to do with all of this stuff. And even now they're still giving you lore bits about him as a character that are really interesting. You know, Sifo Dyas was on the Jedi Council at one point, and they kicked him off the council because he was crazy. But I don't know, it's just fascinating the way that they keep including small nuggets about this guy that build this whole picture throughout a whole bunch of different books.
Logan asks in the TikTok side, thoughts on Leslie Headland and what determines if a kyber crystal turns blue or green. Love Leslie Headland, very talented director. Can't wait to see what she does with Acolyte.
Yeah, also massive Star Wars fan from the old era of Star Wars, big Legends fan as well. But more than that, something I probably shouldn't say this because the fanboys haven't found this out yet. Really close with Rian Johnson. Big fan of Rian Johnson's. Worked with him often early in her career. And he's such a phenomenal director that I think some of that style kind of comes through. They actually are working together again, but you can kind of feel that influence in Russian dolls that she made on Netflix, which is actually what prompted her being able to get the Acolyte.
And what determines if a kyber crystal turns blue or green? The user and the crystal itself. Whether it turns blue or green remains to be seen. It's just the best thing I could say is when the user bonds with the crystal, and the crystal's like, you seem like a blue person. That's it. It's just like there's no really set criteria. It's kind of like a sorting hat. They're like, oh yeah, you seem to be a blue person. If the user's like, no, green, it's like, oh, green, Gryffindor, or whatever. It's just the kyber crystal connects with the user, and for all of what we don't know about the Force, it could come down to just that. The kyber crystal is like, I get the sense of like yellow from you. And the user is like, through the Force, like, no, but I really want blue. And the crystal's like, all right, whatever. You can have blue. Jeez. So, I mean, yeah, I like to connect it to the sorting hat. It takes the user's wants into account as well.
Also, one thing we do have to remember about the Force is that the Force is something that will never truly be explained. I don't ever expect them to go into detail on Force ghosts and how they work, or exactly how the connection for kyber crystals are, and that's because that's never the purpose of the story, right? That's all separate from the story. But more than that, the Force is a Deus Ex Machina machine, right? It's a mystical thing that you can put into any equation to make it equal out. I think that's intentional.
Yeah. Oh no, I don't associate green with Gryffindor. I was just kind of like going back and forth from Harry Potter to Star Wars. It's like, oh, green, oh, Gryffindor. I mean, green is definitely Slytherin for sure. But Zane in the chat said, Raffle, rolling on the floor laughing. Imagine a Padawan, not red. Of course, that's why we have that lore saying you cannot produce red without bleeding it and injecting your own hatred.
Which is a cool thing. And I know Cal4, good friend of the channel, will disagree with this because red is his favorite color. But that's also why in canon you won't see Jedi using red lightsabers, because this is a crystal that's been hurt. It's a semi-living thing. They want to heal it. They want it to feel better. They want to alleviate its pain. And I think that's just really cool.
There's also some instances of people picking up a red lightsaber and immediately feeling all of that pain, and they like it's like picking up a hot plate. You're just like, whoa, I can't use that.
When you mix that in with the added stuff that we've gotten from both The Mandalorian and Rebels, of the lightsaber, it feels heavy, right? But when you are connected to its to the lightsaber, it feels light and it does what you want. It becomes like a conduit between you and the Force, right? But if there's no connection, you're fighting against it. You're fighting the blade, and it feels heavier and heavier and heavier. And I love the concept of someone who is, let's say they are a bad guy, they are a Sith, they are turning to the dark side. Well, now all the crystals are going to feel heavier. Maybe they have the strength or the training to overcome it, but they need to dominate that thing to its will so that it can become a part of them. But then you have cases like Kylo Ren, who he fights super heavy, swinging his broken lightsaber. And as soon as he gets his own lightsaber, he gets the blue one, his fighting style changes completely, and it's smooth and quick, and it feels light again. I just think that's cool. It adds a lot more to the lore than just colors are colors.
I like to point that out a lot, because a lot of people attribute the baseball bat like swinging of lightsaber combat in the sequels to them not knowing how to like, these people do this for a living, guys. We have costume department, choreographers, action directors. They are not going to purposefully choreograph bad fights. It's just, when you can see the clear distinction between how Kylo uses his unstable saber to when Ben uses the Skywalker saber, it's night and day. It's like he turned into a prequel Jedi. And I point to that a lot because it's a clear and important distinction to make, that when finally the instability is gone, it makes a huge difference. And it also connects to the way Sabine was fighting with the Darksaber. You know?
Yeah.
Saruni Tomi says a screenwriter will come along and delve into the mystical side or nature of the Force. That would be a great thing for fans to see something different on screen. I do believe Acolyte is the start of our dark side mysticism that we're going to get, but Dawn of the Jedi is probably going to be heaps and dollops of mysticism and Force lore, and I cannot wait for the opening crawl of that movie. It's just going to say, "We still don't know everything about the Force."
Now, I have a question. Can I read something to all of y'all and get your guys' thoughts, everyone in the chat as well as you, Pep, because you may not have gotten here yet, but it's not a spoiler, and I think you would enjoy it.
Sure.
So we all know the famous, Yoda quote on fear leading to anger, and anger leading to hate, and hate leading to the dark side. But according to Yaddle, there's another chain. All right. Another chain, Yaddle says. Courage leads to peace. Peace leads to love. Love leads to healing.
That's great. I absolutely love that. Definitely want to see the chat's comments on that, but like the courage to overcome adversity definitely leads to some kind of peace within oneself. And when you have peace within oneself, you give yourself the room to love again, or even to start to love. And when you can start to love, or when you can love again, what was the last one?
love leads to healing.
When you can love again, it's to healing. And it brings me back to my DiadCon recap, where I said all you have to do is to allow yourself to love again. But I suppose that takes courage, and you need to, obtain peace for yourself through that courage.
Yeah,
that's a great chain.
By the way, Dex and download, Darthman86. If y'all aren't at the next icon, I'm gonna cry.
Listen, guys,
we need all you here in the chat. Please come, Krista.
Yes,
guy, I can't say your name. I'm sorry.
Krista V, Darthman86, Dex and download, everybody. The planning is still early stages. We have a premise, and we're gonna gauge everyone's interest. But the idea
There was an idea.
There was an idea. Take a group of people. No. The idea right now that we're floating is to bake the entire cost of the trip into the entry. So a lot of what we did so far was this last DiadCon was get people to commit to coming to this place. They had to pay for the flight. They had to pay for the hotel room. And we did all of the logistics with Elizabeth and Salathil, shout out to them, to get people in the same place and to get people to be in the same hotel and to kind of have this moment together to gather. And the premise now, to make it more accessible for people to come, is so let's say just for hypothetical reasons, you had to pay $200 for a DiadCon ticket, and we would be transparent about where it's all going, but that $200 included lodging too. So as soon as you spent that upfront cost, you're good to go. You have a place to stay, you're with the group, and all you would have to worry about is your flight to said place. we don't have any solid or concrete plans as to where it's taking place, but we do know that we want people to be all in the same place and have that cost baked in. So, I mean, think about it, I mean, the more people that come the cheaper it is going forward for you guys. So if we can get 50 people, for example, committed to it, the cost of the cost of entry lowers, and it's gonna be a blast. I feel like Jesus, like I want to conceptually give you guys an idea. Think about, all right, since we haven't really nailed this down officially, think about a cabin, a lake house, a villa that we're all going to...
The lake house with Sandra Bullock? Is that a Sandra
that
Bullock
we're
movie?
all going to rent out, and it sleeps 50 people. It is an entire property. We are going to rent out an entire property, and that means everyone is still in the same area. And all we have to do is split the cost of that property, and you all are good. We can cook our own food. We can go grocery shopping. We can, go swimming in the lake and do some boat riding or whatever.
It's like nerd camp.
So Young says, I want my own cabin. I need sleep. There are properties with bungalows. There are properties with expanding bunks, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we're not,
and
so like the main thing is that the entire cost of the trip includes the fact that we are all together, but there will be properties that have guest houses and bunks and bungalows or villas where we're all in the same kind of lakefront, but there's just, villas that are on the same boardwalk. It's tough to visualize, but yeah.
But either way, Young, I feel like this would be perfect for you, and by extension, perfect for me, because I actually think we're pretty similar in this regard, where you would be able to just go and leave the group. Like, you could Irish goodbye it and then go lay down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not have to worry about anything.
And this is why it's also just not fully solidified. Like, we're thinking about ski trips as well, and
so
it's just...
that's one of the important considerations. One of the things that made it really great where we had it this last time was being in Southern California. We were right around everything. If you were hungry and you wanted food, you can go out. We got some bomb ass Mexican food from this place. I forgot to ask, how yours was. Mine was fantastic. People, we got to go head over to the mall. Some people had Disney, tickets on different days. So we would all return to a centralized location. We spent a lot of time together, but there was also a lot to do other than just be in one spot together. So we kind of have to weigh the benefits of that to make sure, there's enough to do for everyone.
Yeah. But just to be transparent, this all came from gauging everyone's feedback from the trip. And not everyone has given feedback, but there were people who gave feedback, and feel free to give that feedback if you had attended this DiadCon. But essentially, a lot of people, the highlight of DiadCon for them was...
Yeah, I love you, Young. You could
the
find
highlight
bugs.
of DiadCon for them was the late night gatherings in a hotel room and chilling and vibing. Although it was memorable to go to Galaxy's Edge for the first time and have that experience, a lot of people was like, I really just loved vibing with everyone in the hotel room. and watching movies. And so we thought about, like, you know, a cabin where everyone can get together for a movie night or whatever. And so, but the main point is whatever ends up happening is that we wanted to get one price and split it amongst people who are going, and just make that the entire cost of coming, outside of travel. Because, you know, we had some people that attended a DiadCon that still had to, you know, go to a different hotel because of pricing, and so they were priced out of being with everyone, even though they were able to hang out with us and come in and visit us at the hotel. So, you know, we thought, what if, like, the entirety of $200 ticket was you're with us, you're on the property, whether it's in a separate guest house or bunks. We were looking at a SoCal lakefront property that had a main house that slept 18, and then for like an extra $800 you could add another bunk or another set of bunks that would sleep another 15, and you could expand your trip as it goes. So we're looking at that stuff, but essentially the savings also comes in the cost of dinners too. We could all go grocery shopping and cook our own food. I'd be able to cook my Korean fried chicken. I'd be able to cook my coffee flan. Choco, what would you cook?
I made my Choco's tacos for sure.
Taco.
No, I got a lot of things up my sleeve. I cook a lot. And yes, bugs are cool. I wasn't hating on you for the bugs comment. Finding bugs is actually fun. Finding bugs outside, depending on the bugs. But there's always lots of options. Another, maybe in the future we could just do the Dyad goes camping.
We could do that as well. The possibilities are endless. We were just trying to, from a logistics standpoint, trying to find a way to kind of bake the cost of the trip itself into everyone's entry, instead of making people all kind of like get together in certain groups and smaller groups and split between them and have someone booking differently, and just kind of, we wanted to centralize all of the costs so that everyone just pays this $200 ticket, and then they have it, and then they're there and they're with us, whether it's Dyad on the sea, Dyad on the mountains, or Dyad camping, or Dyad by the lake, something, whatever may be the case. This also affords us a way to kind of move the couches aside, move some seating aside, and cast some YouTube video karaoke and have our own karaoke without any time limit. And you know, we can make our own drinks there and just be chill in our own space. And, you know, for consideration for people, you'd be able to walk away and go back to your bunk or whatever.
Yeah.
You know?
You can be responsible for your own water consumption.
Yeah. But I gotta tell you, man, I think one highlight from DiadCon was the hot tub with Nav, Chase, Cal, Ellie, and Choco. And Pat. You know, it was it was so relaxing. And we played those smaller moments, those more intimate moments are they do really highlight some of these trips. You know? We played Would You Rather, or either what was it was Would You Rather, right?
We played Would You Rather, and just started making up weird scenarios.
How's it going, Naden? Okay, let's do this Would You Rather. Do a Would You Rather. You have something to think about? I'm going to check on Master Allen. That's why I'm
Now, I'm still intrigued by this idea of hobo dinners that I see people talking about in the chat. Because in my mind, I picture you having just a sack with like canned beans. You know what though? I don't know. Maybe this is a bum wine night, where it's only like Old English and like Mickey's and Night Train, foil dinner, if you will. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, foil dinners are. I mean, that has upgraded recently to Instapot dinners, but you know, you can create a hobo dinner in the Instapot. You just throw in a bunch of meat and veg and water and or broth, and then just kind of slow cook it.
We could play Edward 40 Hands, you know? Those are good times. Oh, yeah, you can do fishing and stuff as well. That sounds...
There's a lot of activities that are open to us once we're all in the same space, and we can all just talk about, like, you know, fishing, swimming.
Also,
boating.
I can do some... I can also do some. Yeah, thing is, we need to do the big head count first, though.
Yeah. We need the head count. We need to gauge interest, and then you know, we'd have to go in on a property and decide where it's going to be, and then I'm working on a ticketing system for sure. So that everybody knows and is reminded of this event, and you know, you pay for the ticket, and you get your own barcode, and the badges are printed. I'm trying to work out that system, but yeah. Is the idea for it to be annual DiadCon 2025? Right now, it's not necessarily set in stone. It's not set in stone, but it is certainly something that, you know, when people express a need for that togetherness and to kind of decompress from it all. I know a lot of people, including Young, expressed just the need for this communion. Initially, so that's what ended up happening. So it's not like this thing where it's kind of like, okay guys, plan for a DiadCon every year. It's just we'll kind of gauge everyone's interest and get a head count and see if it is feasible at the time.
So for people in the chat, I have to ask, would you rather, I think this is one of them we actually asked, would you rather be royalty 1,000 years ago or a regular person now?
Oh. Is that just like, would you rather live in obscurity or would you rather live through Game of Thrones?
Regular person now, says Young. You can be royalty. You can live like a king, you know? I don't want my feet to be bound. Fair.
I feel like no,
but even setting aside, you know, like racial issues or anything like that, personally I'd still rather be an average person today. But what are you thinking?
I was just thinking, as a Star Wars fan, like, despite what's going on today in the world, as horrifying as the world is today, we are living through some of the best times for nerds, for geeks, for fandoms, for just in general being normal. Outside of all of the politics and outside of all of the world and stuff, it's a great time right now to be living. And I remember when I was just getting on the internet in 1995, and that ain't it. That's not the move that time. So going further back, I know that we romanticize a lot in terms of like the knights and medieval times and, you know, wearing armor and shooting bows and arrows and stuff like that. It's great. It's fun in video games being a samurai and doing that. Would I live in feudal Japan or medieval times even as a royalty? Probably not. No. It's not worth it.
But you could do all the opium you wanted. No. To me, what it comes down to is this. I feel like choosing royalty 1,000 years ago, the only benefit would be if you consider yourself above everyone else. Right? That gives you an elevated position as compared to other people. But it's a worse condition than you are now being an average person.
So
I really feels like it lends itself to that mindset.
Here's a bit of nuance I need clarification for. If you chose to be royalty 1,000 years ago, does that mean you bring with you all of the knowledge you carry with you today?
Somebody's been watching Dr. Stone.
No, because listen. If I could go back to being royalty 1,000 years ago and shape the future and make sure that what I know today and the ideals of what I feel should be the direction the world goes, and affect that change from that time, and kind of, I would probably try to. But if I didn't know anything, if I was just like a royalty back then, I don't know if I would. I don't know if it would be worth the effort.
Yeah. Back then, you're like, my best friend just died. Oh, what happened? He got a splinter 8 weeks ago. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Blue Eagle Gamer says, create Star Wars 1,000 years before it strikes. Just kind of, you know, be a Biff.
Okay. Easier question. Would you rather, this is for free, have a personal maid or a personal chef?
Personal
right.
chef. Personal chef.
2 for chefs and 1 for maid. Cooking takes so much time. That means cleaning takes way longer than cooking, though. And
Yes.
you could cook without cleaning.
The thing
Because you
is,
have a professional maid.
the thing is, cleaning doesn't take nearly as much calculus. If you had a personal chef that could make you the most healthy meals every night, and all you had to do is scrub down some surfaces and organize pillows and make sure the clutter was clean, that's an easier look for me than to kind of figure out what I'm eating for dinner every night. Doing the shopping, because personal chefs do shop as well. They get the ingredients and they prep everything and they cook it. So yeah, I'd rather clean than to do the mathematics of cooking every night, you know.
Okay.
Also, to what Young said, like, I could just go to my personal chef, but like, I'm kind of like craving Mexican tonight.
That being said, I would also choose chef. I was just
how's it
trying
going,
to-
Nick?
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Anakin. We can still have these fun conversations while we commiserate, but moving the subject to Anakin, we have talked about this in passing and for a while now on this episode, from the pre-show to everything. Great job during Podathon, guys. Thank you so much. I appreciate the sentiment, Nick. Thank you so much. We had fun.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. Yeah.
But okay, so for Anakin, I had this one hot take question for everyone. And this kind of is a continuation of our discussion from earlier, but and definitely I want your thoughts, Choco, and in the chat for sure. The question is, why does he deserve special treatment? When for 1,000 years, Jedi have come, they've gone, they've done all right with the systems in place with the Jedi. They've had therapy. They've had Jedi who fell to the dark side and asked for help and have come back. And for the most part, this question comes out of people always arguing, if the Jedi had done this, if the Jedi had bent over backwards, if the Jedi had basically done this, Anakin would not have fallen. Why does Anakin deserve special treatment? Why do the Jedi need to treat him with thicker gloves than every other person that matters? Everyone matters in the Jedi Order.
I mean, I know people will say, "Oh, because he's the literal chosen one," and that's not good enough. And by the way, his status as the chosen one was very dubious for a lot of people for a very, very long time, even in the fandom.
Yeah.
And if anything, I mean, he needed more discipline, not less discipline. You know, he's the kid that was crying, who threw a fit because he wanted candy and started knocking over kiosks in the grocery store, and now people are going, "Oh, well, it's your fault because you didn't give him candy," and you're like, "No, giving him candy isn't the problem."
I came in at a good time.
I'm gonna shorten your name just for
Oh, that's fine. Do FNMA.
FMA. Do you study Filipino martial arts?
I do, but not.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, if you weren't welcome, Master Allen.
Hold on one second. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure my daughter does not end up on camera. There we go. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes.
All right. Put that on the counter, okay? Okay.
And then also, just so you know, the podcast itself might be framed differently than what's in your camera view, so you can keep that in mind as well. If you can
Got it, no problem.
take a peek at what we're actually seeing.
Yeah, so if you just kind of tuned in, Master Ellen, go ahead and introduce yourself, by the way, to everyone as well. Oh, but I feel like everyone knows you because I've shown off Satil so many times. But
by the way, I have not made a lot of content recently. I'm just getting back in the swing of things, but I can't wait to showcase the lightsaber. It's incredible. It's gorgeous. And
it's pretty slick, right?
Amazing.
Like it's pretty. It's pretty.
It's so. I mean, listen. It makes me feel like I'm a VIP. Like, just the case alone with the combo locks. It's like, now let me show you a lightsaber, and it's like, wow.
You turn it on, it's just like brighter than 90% of all the other sabers around, and yeah, it's good stuff.
But yeah, why don't you introduce yourself to the folks watching? And if you just tuned in, the prompt was in response to a lot of the rhetoric around Anakin and the Jedi Order. Why treat him Why give him special treatment? Why does he deserve more than any other Padawan youngling in the Jedi Order? And go.
So one of the things, right? Like, I don't have a way to see chat. Is there a way I can do that? Let's see.
I can share with you.
Yeah, let me bring that up. So I can't believe I'm about to defend Anakin. So one of the realities of this character. So there are a lot of people that, like, we have to fill in the spaces in between. Because, like, not just with the movies. Oh wow, oh my goodness, all the people. There we go. Okay. So we have to fill in the shadows on our own, and based on our backgrounds and our experiences and other things, how we fill in that space. And so there are some people that they see the interaction of Yoda and Anakin, where Anakin is like, Master Yoda, so my friend had this dream, and my friend was wondering about what you're supposed to do when, you know, these sorts of things happen in these visions, and this is entirely for my friend. Can you give me any helpful information? And then Yoda's sitting there like, it's just like, if you're not going to tell me the truth, I can't help you. Like, if you're not going to give me anything, I can't give you anything back. Like, I don't know what you want from me. But so we take that scene, and now there are some people that see that scene and they assume that is basically the only time that Yoda has interacted with Anakin about his feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And they see that, and it's like, oh, well, that wasn't tremendously sensitive. Anakin needed somebody to be sensitive with him. Now, I am personally of the school that Anakin needed somebody to grab him by the ear, sit him down, and say, like, tell me the truth, or GTFO. But like, if that's the snapshot, and then they assume, okay, that is the warmest Yoda has ever been to him. And so if there was some other opportunity where Yoda or Obi-Wan or somebody explained non-attachment to Anakin like he was 10, for example, back when he was 10, then all of this stuff that Anakin did, he would have known better, but nobody did that because we don't see it on screen. And because we didn't see it, then I can assume that it didn't happen. And so I can understand everything about what Anakin is feeling, and all of these other people should have done a better job. I disagree with that point of view, but there's all these gaps where, like, we have to make assumptions. And so some people make the assumptions that nobody ever explained it to Anakin like he was 10. Other people see those gaps and assume, okay, I have option one, Yoda and Kenobi explained this to Anakin multiple times, and they were running out of ways to figure out how to explain it to him so that he'll understand. Or I have to assume that Anakin ignored them and didn't do what they said. And the second one, there's all kinds of evidence within the story that I can assume that and, like, be on solid ground. Whereas the first one, there's a whole lot of stuff that suggests that that's not how either of them teach. And so for me, I'm in that camp where it's like, well, so, like, Kenobi's had this conversation with Anakin more times than Kenobi can count, but the story is from Anakin's perspective. And so we see these individual moments where Anakin is kind of turning away from those values. If it's from Kenobi's perspective, it may be different, it may not, but we're never going to get that movie, which is ultimately probably for the best. But, like, because that's, you know, I think I did a video about this recently. Hold on one second. I need to help my dog go outside and hopefully not bark at the neighbors. Just pause moment.
No worries.
Um,
While
Go
he's
ahead.
while he's out doing that, I mean, I just want to say, because yeah, I see the same thing, right? There's some different gaps in what is seen on screen, and so I definitely see people running with those gaps. But what I want to say is, from my perspective, making the assumption that he wasn't taught the same thing that every Jedi ever has been taught, that we know they teach a Jedi, is the thing that's wild for me. You know, we can assume that they've had those conversations about his emotions, about his feelings, because in Attack of the Clones, he's able to recite their whole thing on how they actually encourage love. You know, we see how when he responds with the Tuskens, we see the shame that he feels and that he knows what he's doing is wrong. That means he was taught that was wrong, and chose to do it anyways. Like there's a lot of information that we do have that kind of gives us an answer to some of these questions. So yes, it's not entirely just a black box. And if it was, if you come to the conclusion that he was not taught these basic things about being a Jedi, then he should never have been a knight. He didn't deserve to be a knight. Certainly didn't deserve to be a master.
Well, and like, and the knight thing is the other thing, right? And so like, there's some of this is the nature too of people arriving at the characters, because there are like, all of us can acknowledge and understand that there are people that see Anakin, and the way that they process his story is he is an individual that wanted to love someone and felt like they had to hide that love, and there is religious coding around the people that he felt like he had to hide it from, and so like they are deeply intimate with understanding that feeling. And so they don't apologize for any of Anakin's actions, but they separate the actions from those feelings, and they really, really understand those feelings. And like, I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
You know, like I get it. For me, and people with military backgrounds as well, like the combination of those two things, like martial artists and military, like several of Anakin's like outburst moments and things like that are things that we look at, and it's like, oh well, this is a trope. I'm told stories very early on about not being this dude. Oh, he was mad that he wasn't a master. Like he was mad when he found out that he wasn't ready to be a master, and that's how we know that he's not ready to be a master. Okay, I've seen this villain a bunch of times.
Where you know, where I come down on this is a lot of conversations seem to lack the accountability of Palpatine as well. And when we insert Palpatine into the scenario where he is constantly gaslighting Anakin, and as well as perpetuating a mistrust of the Jedi, you end up with a cocktail of factors that increase the likelihood that Anakin goes the way you want him to go. If someone is telling you not to trust the Jedi, and if the Jedi are like, is not anything wrong, and Anakin chooses to land on the side of Palpatine and not trust the Jedi, that means he's not being forthright, and the Jedi have no means of moving forward with the information they have. And so Palpatine, if he didn't exist, I don't think that Anakin would have ever fallen.
Certainly not become a Sith. I could
Totally
definitely
agree.
see him, falling out of the Order or leaving or something like that.
I can see him quitting. Like I can see him being like, you know what? I don't want to have to do this. I'm gonna leave.
He could, he would leave. But also, I also point to the fact that Shmi, his own mother, had the right of it. She had her finger on the pulse when she told him, "Don't look back." You know.
I have Dexon download in the chat says Palpatine wouldn't have been so great at his gaslighting if Annie had better training and mentorship. He chose Annie because he knew he was conflicted, easy prey. And this one I am gonna have to push back against a little bit. Obviously, love you.
I have a super short response to this one. I've seen this one so many times.
Go for it.
Blaming the parents of kids who are victims of grooming and abuse is like, that's missing it entirely. Like there are people from all manner of socioeconomic backgrounds. There are people from all manner of faiths that their child becomes the victim of grooming, becomes a victim of radicalization, and like it's not You know, like it's like every parent has flaws. There's no such thing as a parent that doesn't have flaws, that doesn't give their kids like things that they have to go to therapy over and things like that. That's because that's part of how that works. But blaming the parents of a kid who gets groomed is incredibly misunderstanding the role of the groomer and how they're able to be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing I was going to point to, it's something I've been saying lately, is it's the equivalent of like someone is playing soccer and they try to kick it, high into the right of the net, and the goalie jumps up and blocks it. And they think to themselves, if only I'd kicked it low and left, right? The goal is all the way over here. He wouldn't be able to get it. And you're like, no, the goalie would jump the direction you kicked it, right? They're responding to what you're doing. I don't think there's any sort of, if only we had done this, then Palpatine wouldn't have been effective, because Palpatine would have just said something different. He would have just used a different tactic. He wanted Anakin because of his power in the Force from the time he met him. So whether or not, and that's why there's just a lot of like what ifs that always kind of irk me. If like, oh well, what if only the Jedi had brought Shmi with them, then he wouldn't have fallen to the dark side. And you're like, no, he would have been more attached, and Palpatine would have just killed his mom to turn him to the dark side. Palpatine is not a static character. He's going to adapt to get what he wants.
Well, Palpatine and Anakin are the only characters in the story that have agency. Because Palpatine is using the Force to see what the outcome of his choices are going to be. And so Palpatine gets to make all of his choices based on knowing outcome paths, so that he can narrow things to fulcrum points. And all the leverage points he's creating all come down to Anakin and whether Anakin wants to sell his soul or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're the only two characters that actually have the benefit of agency within the story. Everything the Jedi do, no matter what it is, no matter how they do it, it doesn't actually affect the outcomes of the story.
And it's just like he says in the novelization, the best Jedi trap is the one that they're in before they even know it. Yeah, that's true. And we also get to see that at least what we see on screen is the first two attempts of Palpatine to turn Anakin failed. It was the third that was successful, right? So the Draco Hardeen arc was an attempt by Palpatine to turn Anakin, and what happened on the Invisible Hand at the very beginning of Revenge of the Sith,
Right,
was also an attempt to turn Anakin. It's one of the reasons why he was like to leave Obi-Wan behind, because he thought that loss would be enough to turn him, and it didn't work.
make him more susceptible. Yeah.
Third time worked. If the third time didn't work, then he would have tried a fourth time.
kept finding something. But this is, and like one of the problems with talking about Star Wars, like outside of it being an opera, like talking about Star Wars like it's a history, there's so much stuff that breaks so fast because there's so many things that are like, well, yeah, but this doesn't actually make sense. Like that, it's like that's the nature of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like blaster bolts travel slower than the speed of light, but they have interstellar combat. The spaceships maneuver in atmosphere as though they are in space,
Fighter
and vice
jets.
versa.
Yeah.
Like it's there's all of these things where it's just like this logistically this doesn't make sense. A Star Destroyer is capable of, from orbit, bombarding a planet to glass by itself, and so like the Death Star thing doesn't make any sense at all. Because then all you're doing is taking this world that we are competing over resources, and so I want to be in charge of the world because of the resources. I'm going to turn the resources into an asteroid belt where it's going to be now harder to farm those resources. Like it's like everything about it is, it's just like, well, it works as a metaphor, it doesn't work as a history, because there's too many things where like you ask one layer of questions and then the answer is the meta. Like,
and that's a and I think that's a big problem with modern Star Wars, is the expectation of quality is so much higher. I actually think the quality of writing is much higher. And what when you watch like the Clone Wars and stuff, George was throwing stuff at a wall and seeing if it stuck, and some of it was awesome. But like I point to the prequels had the villain of the week type of thing, where you had General Grievous and you had Count Dooku, and the characters weren't fully fledged out. So General Grievous is just the antagonist. That's all he is. How competent he is, how capable he is at fighting, is just raised or lowered just enough to match what they need the actual protagonist of the story
what
to
the
do.
outcome needs to be is how good he is.
Yeah, is he
Just
the
like Darth
best
Maul.
Jedi killer, or did he get bested by Ahsoka when she was 14?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Jackson Donald says there's so much more behind it. It's the fall of the Jedi and their inability to see Sidious that also leads to all of this. I also have to push back on this because
It's like blaming teachers for teachers being underfunded.
yeah, for the amount of hubris that the Jedi were responsible for, you cannot blame the Jedi for Sidious. Sidious is an active participant in undermining the Jedi. And I feel like reiterating, if Sidious had not been playing 4D chess with the Separatists and the Republic, the Jedi would largely still be status quo and enjoying a large measure of peace. You have to have an external force pushing down on a shelf for it to fall without any support. But you can certainly leverage a shelf on 2 points of support with no weight on it, and it'll stay there forever.
So, and now the stopping evil and darkness from spreading. So here's the problem that the Jedi have. How are we with swearing?
We're good.
Okay. All right. So problem 1: people are assholes. So the Jedi can't win. There's not a way that the Jedi can win. The only way that the Jedi win is if society becomes good enough at caring about each other that the Jedi aren't needed. So the Jedi are firefighters, FEMA, the public school system, and occasionally other stuff as well. But like that's like core things. Every problem that a Jedi has ever arrived on a planet to solve is a problem that other people could have solved well before the Jedi got there, except people were too selfish to solve it. And so somebody outside needed to show up with superpowers to do a lot at the wrong time instead of a little at the right time.
Yeah.
And there still
Very
aren't
true.
enough Jedi for one Jedi to be on every planet.
I like to think of, and I don't like to think of this movie, but I like to think of the Jedi as the X-Men in the movie X3.
Oh God!
If you recall, you had these two sides warring: the humans who wanted to eradicate the mutants who wanted to eradicate those humans, and then the X-Men show up and they're like, "We hold this line," and you're like, "That's all we can do." Is this a great idea? No. Is it gonna do a whole lot? I don't know, but like, we gotta do something though, man.
But in addition to Jackson saying stopping that evil and darkness from spreading, they're already doing that. But it is also as a result of Palpatine's maneuvering. They're fighting.
He's a
they're
democratically elected official.
Yeah, they're
Like-
fighting a war. They're spread so thin that and Palpatine is also introducing, integration acts and policies from his chancellorship to include Padawans in the war and to integrate the Jedi into the Grand Republic army. He has done so much to create a situation where the Jedi are literally stopping evil and darkness from spreading in the best way they can. Otherwise, the option is to let the Separatists take control of all of these worlds and continue to genocide these places with their droids.
I do have a kind of unrelated question for Master Allen. Well, not unrelated, but I have two questions for Master Allen. One, have you jumped into The Living Force by John Jackson Miller?
No,
It's a new
not
book
yet.
that just came out.
Is it a good one?
So this book is about the entire Jedi
The green screen
Council.
does not like that. Does not like that cover. You keep holding up your floors.
It's about the entire Jedi Council going on a mission together to be a show of force, but also to kind of show them who they are. And the entire book is about those types of questions. How should the Jedi treat the civilians? How should they treat the civilians who are bad but not actively murdering people? There's a part at the beginning where they're on a ship and there's this family who can't fully pay for dinner, so Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon give them their meal ticket. Right. Then later they get asked by other people, like, we saw what you did there. Do you have enough for the rest of us? Is that their responsibility? What about tomorrow? Like, there's a lot of questions that go on it. Highly recommend you check out this book of all people.
No, I'm looking forward to it.
You will get a freaking kick out of it. Second question for you is,
okay.
Was Ahsoka right for arresting Darth Maul? As he was Mandalore.
I mean, so like the problem is, like, we'll bring in world politics because there's enough parallels. Is there a good government in the world?
No.
Like, like there's all kinds of places that we can point to that are more socially progressive than the United States in all kinds of ways, that make all sorts of things available to the populace that are not available here for all kinds of reasons and stuff like that. But like you can pick some place. You can pick any place you want, and in that country you can pick a state, and within that state you can pick a city. And then obviously they're not all called states. Sometimes it's provinces, sometimes it's prefects, whatever. You can pick a city, and then within that city you can pick a neighborhood, and within that neighborhood there is going to be more than one person who is being actively victimized by somebody else. And they may be in that location, they might be in a different one. And so this reality of how everywhere you turn around there is a problem too big to solve without everybody caring about actually solving it. Right? And so, like, whether that's on a governmental level, where the kind of calculus that world leaders have to do is stuff that I'm super glad I don't have to do, because you functionally have to weigh different types of people dying from neglect against each other, and like choose where you're going to put the lines in the sand. And all too often doing the right thing gets you unelected so that you can't do the right thing again. Even within our own recent history, every Republican that participated in the January 6th commission lost their job to somebody farther to the right of them who denied the election results as being valid. Yeah. And so this group of people that, like, politically I super disagree with, I have all kinds of problems with that, what they believe is appropriate policy and everything else, they stood up for what was right within the framework of our democracy, and they lost their jobs for it. And I don't feel bad for them, but the consequence of that was very severe, because it caused all of this, like, farther shifting towards oppression and disinformation and all that kind of stuff. Imagine that on a galactic scale. Like, and the amount of things that we've seen in Andor, in Tales of the Jedi, in, I haven't gotten to see all the Tales of the Empire yet, like, all that stuff. Like, how many layers upon layers upon layers of people being victimized there are.
Yeah.
And what's the right thing? The right thing is that people need to stop being assholes, as previously said, but we're not ready for that. And we'll do Douglas Adams, because Douglas Adams is my favorite sci-fi. Maybe my favorite sci-fi. Anyway, anyone capable of being elected to the position should on no account be allowed to do it. And so if we think about how far away our elected officials on a national level are from us individually, and like how far removed from our problems they are, like they're like a vast majority of our House of Representatives and our Senate does not understand how the internet works, because they are so old and so removed from it that they don't understand.
Does TikTok access the Wi-Fi network?
Like, some of the worst questions about like internet security and other things. There's a representative named Massey who is from my state, and it's just like, oh my god.
Real quick, Dex download, they dismissed prophecy and then it got them in the end. So the moment when Anakin was standing there, and Mace Windu was standing over Palpatine, that was the prophecy moment. That was the moment that was prophesied. That was Anakin having the ability and the agency to end the threat right there, right then and there. He had already killed Count Dooku, and they could have ended the Sith threat. And he
I argue it happens earlier.
Well, it happens a bunch of times, right? Like,
yes.
Anakin is the example of it's never too late to do the right thing.
That was a major fulcrum of like,
beyond
this, we don't have another option, right? So, and they also didn't dismiss it. Like, I mean, Mace Windu, for one, was like on board with the prophecy, and Anakin. But yeah, no, Anakin dismissed the prophecy. That's the person who dismissed it.
Kind of.
He chose.
Drew in the chat says, did they really dismiss the prophecy? They gave that dude Anakin every chance and ignored every red flag. And I think in general, we point to one scene with Obi-Wan.
That's a good point. Without the prophecy, it probably wouldn't have. Without knowing of the prophecy, Anakin probably would have fulfilled it.
But we also point to that one scene with Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Mace on the dropship, where they're talking about the very prophecy itself, and they're even thinking about whether or not they've misread it, and whether Anakin continues to be the chosen one, in relation to everything that's going on around them. So they're always, it's always on their minds. And the first fulcrum that I come down on is when he finds out Palpatine's a Sith. He ignites his blade and says, I should arrest you. But he doesn't. So, I think,
And it's impossible to defend Anakin's actions. Like, it's impossible. Because this is the part that everybody forgets with, like, the sequence of events, right? And so, Anakin's told to wait at the temple. He doesn't. Anakin goes to Palpatine's office. We don't have enough information to know how he enters. Like, the book says he enters from a different way, which is why there's an excuse that he doesn't walk by 3 corpses and think it's weird. But in the movie, that's not how he comes in. He comes in through the same door. And so in order to get to where he did in the movie, Anakin walked by 3 dead bodies and then sees Mace Windu and Sidious in the window. And he's like, I don't know what I should do.
Opagayworth subscribed to the Dyad.
And then after he makes the wrong decision and knows that he's making the wrong decision, like all of that, after he does that, then he finds out that Sidious has been lying to him this whole time about being able to save Padme. We will learn this power together. And so at this moment where Anakin should be able to put all the puzzle pieces together, realize that he has been played, instead he goes into a kindergarten with a weapon.
That's why. I love that scene because it's so dumb to be like, I did this to save her. Now how do we save her again? And he's like, oh, I don't know.
We'll learn together. It'll be okay. Don't worry, buddy. Don't worry about it.
He doesn't even
You're
say
Darth
wait
Vader
a minute.
now. Stand up.
He doesn't even say like, wait a minute, hold on. He just says, oh, all right, well, let's learn.
Okay. Kids next. All right.
He follows that by saying, I pledge myself to your teaching. Love the character. It makes me sad to see, because ultimately Anakin is a good kid who fell down the alt-right pipeline in Star Wars, and becomes a space Nazi for the next 23 years of his life.
One of the things that is interesting to me about conversations about Anakin is that people, there are a lot of people that will spend a lot of time actively defending Anakin the character, and in other content actively demonize world leaders of the moment that don't have the body count that Anakin did.
Yeah.
Really quickly, Posh Donkey on the TikTok says, doesn't the son attempt to turn Anakin to a Mortis, or am I remembering wrong? He doesn't need to turn Anakin. He literally subjugates Anakin. He is the dark side. So there was no
Dark
attempt
side
to make...
clouds your vision. It does. This is non-canon, but this is how I prefer to think about it from a story standpoint. Having the Force is getting 3 wishes. And the lesson of the 3 wishes story is that a wish can't solve your problems. You can solve your problems. A wish makes them worse. And so then the 3 wishes story goes one of 2 ways. Either you keep trying to wish your way out of it, in which case you sell your soul to the devil and it's Faust, or you use your last wish selflessly instead of selfishly, and it saves your soul. And then whether that's Bedazzled or Aladdin or whatever, because that's
the
part
monkey
of the
paw.
Yeah. And so the Force, which Anakin did by ROTJ, yes. And then had the worst, well, no, like the most narcissistic parent last words ever. Just ever. I wish there was point of view or perspective story of Leia having the conversation with Luke about Anakin's last words. I wish that existed.
There's a brief allusion to it in the Princess and the Scoundrel. And she's like, yeah, I don't forgive him.
He said, what? Wait, back up. The guy that tortured me stood by as my planet was destroyed and all of the people that cared about me and all the people I loved, and also tried to kill us on multiple occasions. You were right about him. There was still good in him. That's awesome, bro. Happy for you.
So as we get closer and closer to wrapping things up for this episode, I do want to get your guys' take on this, and it's something that truly bothers me about some of the fandom when it comes to trying to understand Anakin and the characters and the Jedi in general, is that there is so much consideration for Anakin's point of view, in which, yes, his feelings are valid, and you must certainly afford him the consideration of how he feels. Like he feels othered and he feels ostracized sometimes.
And
but
actions.
But I feel like there is more consideration afforded one-sidedly to Anakin's perspective, and zero consideration for those he interacts with. So, just for an example, and I'll let you guys go off on this, there's a lot of Mace should have treated him better, and that's largely because of Anakin's monologues and inner dialogue of Mace seems to hate me and Mace doesn't want me around. So people take that and then consider that feeling. It's a valid feeling. That's what he's feeling. But consider how Mace feels. Does Mace share that sentiment, or is Mace turning around after a conversation and be like, he's a good kid? You know, so like,
he's going to be so good when he gets his head out of his ass. I don't know how long it's going to take, but I eventually got mine out, and I believe in this kid to do it. But oh my god!
So basically, the premise of this prompt is most of the time as the audience, we operate with omniscience, right? Yeah. We see the outcomes, we know where it's going.
Well, with the prequels, we know how it's going to end before the first movie started.
Exactly. And so
that's like
when we consider Anakin's feelings and his emotions and where he needs to go and what decisions he needs to make, we often consider his feelings above all else in deciding what the Jedi should do to treat Anakin in the correct manner. But we're not considering how Yoda feels, how Mace feels, how Padme feels, or Obi-Wan feels to an extent. You know, I feel like we do consider Obi-Wan because he is his brother and his master, but no one seems to care about the inner dialogue of Mace and Yoda and everyone else in the Jedi Order when they deal with Anakin. Like, Anakin's feelings are the truth of the matter, is what I'm saying. What do you guys think?
So it's easier to find a hate video for Mace Windu or Yoda than Palpatine.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
That's it. Send tweet. Like, and that to me is like, from the martial arts community, from people with a military background, from people with, like if they're involved in like substance abuse recovery, they interact with Anakin's character incredibly differently than other people. And so like the people that aren't, because like I was a 3rd degree black belt when I saw Phantom Menace. I'd been a martial arts instructor for like 7 years when I saw Attack of the Clones, longer than that when I saw Revenge of the Sith. And so like I'm seeing a gifted martial arts student that everybody believes in, that thinks he's ready to be a master but isn't yet, but he's pretty good. And so it's like, all right, I'm gonna have patience for you, but like this is a red flag. I am 3 for 3. The actual human beings that I have met that check that particular box, 3 for 3, were reprehensibly disgusting individuals. But like, okay, all right, and then comes back into his dojo, comes back into the place of the way that is there for these generations upon generations of people, that the mission is so much bigger than an individual and so much bigger than the building. And went into that building, and because he felt like he couldn't live up to the mission, destroyed the building and everybody in it. And so that is my permanent takeaway of the character. And one of my frustrations of the Kenobi show is that Kenobi's remorse is focused on feeling like he failed Anakin rather than feeling like he failed Anakin's victims. Because as an instructor, if I taught somebody how to hurt people and that person came into my dojo and hurt my students, except they would be our students because they were also a student of the dojo, I wouldn't feel like I failed that person. I would be mad that I didn't stop them more decisively. I certainly wouldn't leave them alive 3 times.
Yeah.
Like I knew he had to leave him alive after the final duel of Kenobi, but like that to me is, it's just like, all right, I like this.
Well, I mean,
that breaks my suspension of disbelief.
I don't think he left him alive. I mean, I think in the Kenobi show, when he's surprised that he had lived, I think he thought that at that very moment he was leaving him to die.
But the final fight, when he like piles the rocks on him and everything else, like, it's, you know what I mean? It's like, no, double tap. You've already forgotten to double tap once. Thousands of people suffered because of it.
Listen,
I thought,
zombies.
I thought at that point the kill shot was
Re-stomp the groin.
I think at that point his kill shot was goodbye, Doth.
But so where I come down on is I think the 2 best pieces of Mace Windu content to exist are Coach Carter and Remember the Titans. Watch those 2 movies. Tell me that's not just Mace Windu. Like that's not like, hey, these kids are talented, but they suck. I'm gonna suspend the team until they get their academics up, and once they learn, then we can bring them out, and they'll actually be better people, better teammates, and better for it. And it was right. Or Remember the Titans. Very very similar thing, but like that's what it is at the end of the day. And by the way, in the chat, I got one for Dixon and Krista. Yeah. Well, I just real quick just wanted to tell them, we know that you're not those people like defending that, and no one here is saying that Anakin can't be your favorite character or anything like that. We just need to recognize what the story is and what it did. And real quick to Krista, May saying he didn't trust Anakin was specific. That wasn't saying he didn't trust him as a person. That was him saying he didn't trust him to do this one thing because Palpatine was involved.
I mean, Anakin has demonstrated over and over and over again that he actually can't be trusted.
And they keep
like that's
him
like,
for stuff. Actually, Mace Windu specifically brought in Anakin and Ahsoka to research the temple bombing, and he specifically says, because I trust you. Like, that's what he says.
Ballpark,
So
how many times?
there's also-
and like, ballpark, how many times did Anakin put Ahsoka in a position where she had to lie for him?
My favorite, it has
Ballpark.
to be in the book. It was all the time. Like
Right?
the reason that Ahsoka had to fight General Grievous was because Anakin was off like faffing about. He was looking for R2, and I love R2, but you can't have your 14-year-old tube-top wearing Padawan fight the most prolific Jedi killer in the galaxy because you lost your droid, like, and not have any consequences. Like, that was a weird episode for me.
There's also a deleted scene. I forget, it's either Revenge or Attack of the Clones, where Anakin was to go on a mission, and Obi-Wan is expressing his doubts, and Mace Windu says, he has become quite an accomplished leader. Is he not the chosen one? And then Obi-Wan's the one expressing doubt. And so I think by a certain measure, by a certain time, Mace did come to trust Anakin in his abilities. And just like Choco said, when he says, "Stay here, and if what you say is true, you will have earned my trust," that is not like, I don't trust you, but if this happens, I will trust you. It's just like, you will have earned my trust in this manner.
That you read this
Palpatine.
particular situation correctly.
Yes.
Real
It's
quick
like
on
leaving
Dixon.
a cake around a morbidly obese person, and you're
We try
like,
stuff.
I don't trust you. You don't not trust him as a person. You're just like, this situation probably not the best. That's all I'm saying.
So Dixon's hate leads to anger. And this is simultaneously a martial artist thing, but like, military people talk about this as well. There's a distinction between killing and murder.
Yes.
And so it is wholly and completely possible. So, like, all right, in general, martial arts has a sliding scale of violence. Okay? And so on one side of the sliding scale, we have put them on the ground. And on the other side of the sliding scale, we have put them in the ground, and everything in between is put them in the hospital. You are able to work on that entire continuum without being in a place of anger. Once you start getting like past put them in the ground and you take it into the absurd, that's where then there's like maybe some stuff you got to work on. But put them on the ground, put them in the ground, put them in the hospital. It is entirely possible to be throughout all of this without it being angry, hateful, fearful, etc. It is entirely possible. That doesn't mean there isn't some stuff to unpack after the fact.
It's largely how I respond to people talking about the Force choke from Luke in Return of the Jedi, and then I go back to, how am I to know the good from the bad? You will know when you are calm, at peace, and passive, and
because you're in charge, not your feelings.
Yeah, and the pacification of those guards doesn't come down to him making a choke. It comes down to his intent and what he wants to do. He wants to pacify them. He doesn't want to kill them or anything. So,
and that also
this is better than
one of my
stopping their
biggest one of my biggest pet peeves too is when people misunderstand when Obi-Wan says only a Sith deals in absolutes. They're like, isn't that statement an absolute? No. Like the statement.
The answer is it depends.
The statement is an absolute in the fact that he was like saying something. Like if he says it's hot today, that's an absolute. Does that make him a Sith? No. What he was responding to is Anakin saying, if you're not with me, then you're my enemy. The implication being, if you are not with me, I'm going to put you in the ground, or you need to be put in the ground. That is absolute. Mm-hmm. That is what Siths do. If you are not
Well-
on their side, then you are, you know.
And people have and people have a misunderstanding about the Jedi Code because Anakin viewed it as a duality. He viewed it as black and white, and that was part of the reason why he struggled to operate as a Jedi, is because he didn't understand that it was a sliding scale. He thought of it as binary, and so
Master
He
Allen,
thought-
non sequitur, really quickly. I do see your phone dying through my director's chair, and I was wondering if you could plug in case we lose you.
I'm on my computer. I got 24%.
Okay.
We'll make it. It'll be all right. If we go like 30 minutes, I won't make it. I'll go plug in. But
No,
I only
we should be
really have
wrapping up.
one final question for you, but
but wait. So
we'll
like,
go for it.
so an absolute is, it's like this is good or this is evil, this is right or this is wrong, and mostly Sith are thinking about it in terms of this will make me more powerful or this won't. If it won't make me more powerful, fuck it, it's not important. If it will make me more powerful, I don't care if it's wrong because it accomplishes my goal. That is the binary way in which a Sith thinks. For the Jedi, the rules exist so that you think about them before you break them. Ki-Adi-Mundi had multiple wives. There's all of these like things where it's just like, all right, you're not supposed to do that, but it's between you and the Force, as compared to it is a hard and fast rule. The lines on the road are just paint, and so you don't have to treat them like they are concrete barriers all the time. In general, you should, but they're there so that you think about them before you ignore them.
Also, we never see the Jedi actually like being strict with anyone ever at any point.
The amount of patience they have for Anakin, like the amount of patience.
Also, I have to say, with just to clarify, an absolute statement is not an absolute. By saying only a Sith deals in absolutes, it's not an absolute. The absolutism in Anakin's statement, "You're either with me or you're my enemy," creates an absolutism in the fact that someone can be not with you, but also not your enemy. But he is painting the absolute that you are his enemy, regardless of your stance. That's what creates that absolutism.
Well,
You're either with me or you're my enemy. And in Obi-Wan's case, he'd be like, well, no, I can be not with you, but also not your enemy. But in Anakin's case, that's the absolute.
right.
You either love him or you hate him, or you think he's just okay.
How could Anakin not know about Ki-Adi-Mundi? How could Anakin not know he could just hit it and quit it? But it's like
Rail.
Or about
Favreau's.
Dooku, or his own Padawan. Like, you can leave, bro. Just leave.
but he had to satisfy his ego because he wanted to have greatness. He wanted to be recognized for being great and all that kind of stuff. And also, like, he needs to be stuck on this path where he can choose one path where he would be happy and choose another path where he would be happy, but try to choose both. And in trying to do that, he loses both because the wolf that chases two rabbits goes hungry.
We're full of these idioms.
I've been a martial arts instructor for a long fucking time.
I love him because that's really what the conversation in Brotherhood is about. Is he's like, because at the very beginning he's like, okay, I can serve the Jedi and be the best Jedi I can, and I can, like, take care of my master, and then, like, by serving the Jedi and fighting this war, I'm also helping Padme and my friend Palpatine. And he's like, I can do all of these things. And then as time goes on, all of those things are heading in separate directions. And he's like, no, I'm going to keep spinning all of those plates, because he was unable to let go. And we think of being unable to let go only in terms of relationships, but it's actually everything. It's being able to let go of the master-apprentice relationship that he had with Obi-Wan. It's being unable to let go of the idea of being a Jedi. Maybe you're
also
not cut out for the job of, like, putting the galaxy above everything you need. Maybe you should walk away and just go be with the person you love. And there's nothing wrong with that. Obi-Wan almost did that.
Well, we all know
You can't
Obi-Wan was
half-ass
waiting,
two things. You have to whole-ass one thing.
and we know that Obi-Wan was waiting for the war to be over so that he could hang up his belt and hang up his lightsaber and then go to Mandalore with his hot space wife and help her pacify the most violent culture in the world. and they were gonna do it, because I can't imagine the universe facing the two of them and standing a chance in hell. But the
Well, something that
Go ahead,
this
go ahead,
actually
go
brings me to a quote that I remember from my youth that I didn't really understand until now in this conversation, which was the magic you seek lies in the things you don't want to do.
if you want different results, you have to take different actions. Anakin wanted to do it the way that he wanted it to, like he wanted to do it, and get the outcome he wanted, because he didn't want to have to face it. But there's like Kung Fu Panda's one of the best, like one of the best illustrators of this, because Uguay's sitting there with Shifu, and it's like, dude, you can't control half the stuff that you think you can control.
No.
Like, that's like, no, but I can control that it's a peach tree, because I can decide where to plant the peach and da 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 da. It's like, yeah, but you're never gonna. Your peach tree is never gonna give you an orange. Like, that's out of your control. It's a peach. There you go. And that's the thing Anakin didn't want to hear from Yoda, is that it's like, no, you can't. Like, this is it. Like, the amount of stuff you think you control is way smaller than it actually is, and you're really good, so you can will your way to all kinds of outcomes. But sometimes that's just it.
I will say,
And also, that's what his mom taught him as well. Like, this is, it makes me feel, because like, his mom wouldn't have been on his side with all this stuff.
Oh God, absolutely not. She'd have hit him with a shoe.
I will say what I jokingly blame Yoda for this.
I'm looking forward to this.
I feel like Yoda in that session could have said, not in that particular session, no, 'cause that would be inappropriate. But if, like, in one of the sessions, Anakin was feeling like, you know, he needed answers as to his attachments, Yoda could have been like, bro, just leave the Jedi Order. You can fuck her all you want. That's it. It's, you know how happy he would be and how much love would be in that relationship if he left the Jedi Order.
Okay, here's the problem though. Here's the problem.
It's Natalie.
Can you imagine how much support would have existed for this dude if he had been honest with his mentors?
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine? Like, the amount of stuff that Yoda has seen, the amount of things that Obi-Wan has been through personally. Like, can you imagine how much support would have been wrapped around this kid that, you know, in his mid-20s was confused about whether he wanted to chase a corporate job or become a himbo house husband, and then ended up, like, choosing his addiction.
Yeah.
And
Well,
like,
hot take,
go.
him and Padme weren't gonna make it. They only made it as long as they did because there was a war happening and they couldn't, like, have the conversations that they needed to have. Those conversations kept
I'm not
getting
sure that's entirely
postponed.
true. Because there is a conversation they have in Attack of the Clones where she does want to run away with him.
Oh no, but that's when they got married, right? In Attack of the Clones. But I'm talking about when you get later, when you hit season 6 of Clone Wars, and he's so possessive that she's like, I need space. That situation was not getting better, right? That was not going to get better. He married up. He married way.
Well, and to separate that, like in the Padme novels, where finally we get some story that is about Anakin but isn't from Anakin's perspective, he's an incredibly toxic partner.
Yeah. Lots
Like,
of
he's
red flags
incredibly
from the
toxic.
get-go.
Saba is like, this dude?
He did
Come
what?
on, man.
Even Daxon has it right. Anakin would have learned so much from reading up on Cantum Psi, and I kind of feel like this is the crux of it all. You know, if Anakin would have been like, I'm afraid to lose the ones that I love, and I want to love these people, Yoda would have been like, all right, fine, leave. Like, go pursue this and be happy.
We got a severance package. Go be a good dad.
And it you know, tracks with Cantum Psi. Cantum Psi was like, I would love to experience love. I kind of want to see the world. And Yoda was like, you are free to do so. You may leave. And Cantum Psi leaves, experiences things, and experiences love and goes around the galaxy and learns things, finds someone who is force sensitive and feels like that there is a place for them, and brings them back. And Yoda's like, how was it? And then Ken was like, it's great, but I feel like I'm home now. And Yoda's like, a knight you are, like you return as a knight. And that entire lesson of non-attachment, of leaving the order to as your knight's trial, is so profound.
That's what it's for. Go on walkabout.
Yeah, and if Anakin had been like, I guess I have to leave to kind of sort things out, he could have returned a better person. Who knows? But that option was completely in his bed, you know.
And then Tommy P in the chat says Obi-Wan would have helped Anakin without question. Obi-Wan was going to leave the Jedi to just be Anakin's dad at the end of the Obi-Wan and Anakin book. Like that's a thing that happened. Also, one of my favorite parts of the Revenge of the Sith novelization is when the senators are like, you know what, we actually need to confront Palpatine, but it'd be good if we did this with a Jedi. Padme, is there a Jedi that you trust? And she's like, yeah, there is. And she realizes that she's thinking of Obi-Wan, not Anakin, in that moment. Obi-Wan's the GOAT for that. He kind of drops the ball in some other places, but yeah.
All right, last question before we wrap things up. TTV.
I do have a final question, but yes.
Call Me Rafi asks, what's your opinions on the Asajj retcons? I'm just gonna really quickly say, I await their explanation of the events. I'm all for her return.
Give me Asajj back. We need more females.
I would like
in Star Wars narrative.
I would like for her to have her own show, for that to be explored. I wouldn't want it to be some kind of backwards subplot of another show. But it's also not really an outright retcon, because from what we read in Dark Disciple, it was very suggestive of something there. And it wasn't really they didn't end the book saying, well, she's dead. Like there were some suggestive, prose there that could lead you to think about.
Well, and from a timeline standpoint too, like it's like they can still have their cake and eat it too at the moment. So like,
Ben also says, I swear I saw you in a TV
Ahsoka.
show or a movie. I'm not sure I was in a TV show or a movie. Maybe Choco.
But how did Ahsoka end, right? They were loading hundreds and hundreds of coffins of Night Sisters on Thrawn ship to bring back. What do you think they're bringing them back as? Beef jerky? Is that food? Yeah. Or do you think they have a way of bringing them back? And if they establish that, we have our answer. I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah.
When Star Wars is an opera. It's also a comic book. It's like nobody's dead unless it's inconvenient for them to come back. And so like the permanence of death in Star Wars is as permanent as it is in X-Men.
Scroll of Revivification?
A little bit less. The Krakoan protocols were kind of wild, but made for some very interesting storytelling of how you choose things when resurrection is an option.
How many times has Tony Stark died? Like
he died several times. He came back. He died, but his mind was still alive, or his mind died. One time he became evil. And he was just evil, and then he found a backup of his brain, and they uploaded the backup into the evil body, and he was just bad. It's weird.
It's comic books, and it's Star Wars.
Call Me Rafi says, in the same vein as Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying Mace Windu has a chance? No, they are very explicit about Mace in the Star Wars book. So, like, just to kind of like really quickly put a nail in this. When the fate of Ahsoka was in question before the Ahsoka show and everything, the Star Wars book listed her as last being seen going into the temple. Okay,
because have your cake and eat it too.
Very ambiguous, very not so explicit. In the Star Wars book for Mace, deceased.
Dead.
He's dead. Explicitly dead. So
What's brown, red, and all over the place? It's Mace Windu and a chorus.
Oh no.
All right, final question. And I'm saying this because I kind of want Master Allen to go off because with your martial arts background and all this stuff.
Is this about Yasuke?
Yeah. Yeah. Thoughts on we got news of Assassin's Creed, the next iteration, which I am so stoked for. I think it's an awesome idea to approach, because we've had plenty of samurai stuff before. I see, and even in the
the
comments,
white guy
like,
from Neo.
well, so a lot of people in the comments are like, what? Well, we already have Ghost of Tsushima. Like, why are they doing this? And you're like, to differentiate it from Ghost of Tsushima. I think it's cool to explore an outsider's perspective of learning about samurai and samurai culture, so they can teach us rather than the assumption, and we can do that same with the ninja thing. But anyways, yeah.
So,
what are your thoughts on this whole kerfuffle?
So the kerfuffle is just like, be for serious people. So like Yasuke is an amazing historical figure. Like, let's have something that features him as a video game. That's brilliant. It's awesome. I think it's a great idea. Let's learn some stuff about Japanese history here, because his role as a retainer to Nobunaga in different periods of Japan, that position that he was in carried different rights, different responsibilities. In the particular era he was in, that role were granted like the rights, responsibilities, etc. of a samurai.
Yeah.
And so like everybody
you just land, you got rice and a stipend, you know.
Yeah, and like, but he wore the daisho. He had, like, he wasn't a glorified squire. Like, he was, like, to a certain extent, he was a bodyguard, like, among other things. And so
the scrolls depict him training with Nobunaga's forces as well.
And so like Yasuke was one of the very last people to get a direct order from Nobunaga, which was to go and defend his heir. And he was one of the last people still fighting after that battle was lost.
Also to bring his head there too, because he didn't want his head falling into the hands of
Right, yeah. But that's so like the people that are pissed off about it, it's a giant question mark to me. And now like, and so like, as for everybody in the audience that doesn't know, my grandmother's originally from Okinawa. I'm a quarter Japanese. I don't look it. It's my left leg. It's a terrible joke, but you got to lean into it, right?
You got an Okinawan sidekick.
But so it's one of the very few places where it's easy for me to find representation is video games, because there are so many Japanese studios that make video games. It is so easy to find video games with Japanese male point of view protagonists.
I'll check it out, Ben.
Like, just like, we already mentioned Ghost of Tsushima, but like there are so many more, going back, to before the PlayStation was a thing. And so I don't feel like I am lacking in the opportunity to get to have a Japanese male protagonist that I can like play and get to do that and have that like, personal connection to history. It is not hard for me to find stuff. African American or just Black in general, like people of color primary protagonists in video games are hard to find. They're really hard to find. And so taking an actual historical figure that was actually a historical badass. Did I just do that? What happens when I do two? All right. Two, and then you get pretty bit. All right. If you just do one, you get the little thumbs up bubble. See?
Oh yeah.
All right. So, like, actual historical figure, actual historical badass. Within a time period that is very, very interesting now because of the Shogun television show and the popularity of that. And so like this is a great lucking into striking while the iron is hot. I think it's going to be really cool. I don't currently have a way to play this game. I don't have a console, and I don't have a computer that'll push it, and it's not going to be Steam Deck compatible. And so I don't know that I am going to get to enjoy this on any level other than watching the clips of it.
I'll stream
I'm
it.
gonna watch the clips of it. Like, that was how I enjoyed the first Jedi Fallen Order. Like, because I think it's going to be like, it's a really cool opportunity for a story. I don't have like high trust level of Ubisoft, like, and I don't know that anybody does at this point. I don't have a high trust level of the Assassin's Creed franchise at this point, and again, I don't know that a lot of people do necessarily. But like from a design standpoint, it looks really cool. From a history standpoint, I'm on board. I'm all the way on board. Like that, getting to be balanced in this way, I think it's like, I don't know that I'm going to spend $500 on a console so that I have the right to purchase the game to play it. 'Cause
Also, I mean, any also thoughts on Noe, the other protagonist of the game?
I know they're going to show Ninja as Ninja Mythos rather than what Shinobi kind of were. Because even Shogun kind of falls into that. So in general, whatever you think about Ninja, just everybody watching, in general, whatever you think of Ninja historically is stuff that was invented in the 80s to take money from white people. In general. A lot of the Ninja Clan stuff is all bunk.
So the movie Three Ninjas was not accurate.
Yeah, we'll have to tell Big Bang Mike. Ninja stars were not star shaped. The ninja outfit is a like that costume is it's what a stagehand would wear in different types of Japanese theater. There isn't a ninja uniform. There isn't a ninja outfit. It never existed. Because you would dress like somebody that belonged there, because you weren't a tribe, you weren't a clan, you were a military unit. There were samurai that were ninjas, in the same way that, like, you know, you think about like a SEAL team, they start out as like some type of like a naval like path, and then like, oh, you're good at this, this is appropriate for this, and da 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 da. Like that they were spies, they were scouts, they were assassins, they were, you know, sort of like commando units and other things, because like this is before any kind of electronic information gathering, and so all of your information gathering had to be people with eyeballs physically seeing it.
There are
like
depictions of some wearing the black outfit in the Ninja Scrolls, but that wasn't, like you said, that wasn't like a main, like that wasn't like a ninja outfit. That was more or less.
Well, and like if you've got a dress to be camouflaged, like, I mean, people have like, you know,
but I
faces
also
reflect a lot of light.
I also
and well,
like
that's
to,
why my understanding was, you know, that specific, you know, province, what there was so many like female ninja, and it was because you didn't expect the woman to stab you in the throat and poison a bunch of people. You know?
There were also a bunch of female warrior traditions in Japan, like the Kohei and not Kosei. What is it? Anyway, but like, you know, like Naginata was traditionally trained by women. Like it's a whole family, like a whole weapon style that was traditionally for women.
I like to,
and that men, you know, go ahead.
I like to. So the Iga province was known for kunoichi, and largely because I like to refer to them as the Baker Street Irregulars. They are like listen. You put kunoichi in every single gambling house, every brothel, every corner of every street, just being there, either being doing their jobs, their eyes on the street, their ears for propaganda, and for espionage. And those are the perfect scouts, just like the kids that helped Sherlock. It's like,
yeah, eyes
and ears everywhere, little birds.
Yeah, and like what's his name, the spider from Game of Thrones, right? You have your little network, you have your little people that tell you stuff. Kunoichi, for everybody listening, is the Japanese word for female ninja, and is also one of my favorite children's books to read with my kids is Little Kunoichi. And there's a series of them, because there's an Oba-chan one, and there's one about Chibi Samurai, who is her buddy. They're great, like, and like all the art is watercolor. They're cute stories. It's wonderful. So anybody in the chat, if you are a parent, little kunoichi, if your kids are like still in the sort of like the picture book reading stage, they're great. Lots of little Japanese kind of worked in and stuff like that. So yeah, like, I mean, like all the kerfuffle is just like the amount of pearl clutching that happens with video games now before the video games even release like play footage trailers is just beyond me. I don't like, and I realize part of that is because I am so far out of like release cycles because I can't play like I did when I was in my 20s, and so, you know, there was also like
the clamoring for a
why
Japanese
why don't
man,
they just focus?
But they missed entirely in the trailer that they are going to highlight Naoe's sensei, Fujibayashi Nagato. And he's going to be a central role, also not a protagonist, but still a central role in the storytelling.
There's no way we get through this whole entire story without any male Japanese characters. Like,
you just think Nobunaga's not going to be in it? Like,
what are we talking about?
Nobunaga's in the trailer.
Exactly.
I don't know, man. I was gonna say, but why don't they focus on telling a good story and less on like, you know, people's race and stuff? And I'm like,
Yasuke
it hasn't come out yet. You don't care about the story. You're not waiting for the story. You seem very, very like you care a lot about the race.
Yasuke's a good fucking story. Like, it's a good story.
And even then, it is a story that's filled with mysterious holes to begin with. So it's like, right,
because of the nature of the history at the time,
billing?
like there's so much information that's missing. Like,
Anyways, that'll do it for this episode of Dyad and the Force. I want to thank Master Alan for joining us and being a part of this conversation. I want to shout out Daxon Download, Tommy P, Krista. Everybody who joined us on the YouTube side, on the TikTok side, and joining in on this conversation. I know that this conversation can be to some extent taboo, but we like to get through the discourse with civility and entertain nuance in our conversations. But Master Alan, I want to give you the final word, and also to give you a chance to plug or introduce yourself and let everybody know where they can find you. So go for it.
All right. Well, if you've seen me on TikTok, if you've seen me on the gram, I am Alan down here in Louisville, Kentucky, and I'm Master Alan because of my martial arts, not because of the lightsabers. And that just sort of followed me to TikTok, where I went viral by accident selling my lightsabers and became friends with these guys and a whole bunch of other people. If you are in the market for a lightsaber, these guys have links. You just click on the link and then it supports their content. I have just released a pixel saber that's on sale like a week before I originally planned to, because the pixel sabers allow you to do a rainbow blade, and that's kind of the way that I can participate in Pride Month, as an e-commerce, whatever. But my car has started making a clicking noise, and we've got some medical stuff that we got to pay for, and so I'm starting the sale a week early. A happy owner of Knuckles. There we go. Nice. Hand protection is really important. If you learn anything from Star Wars, hand protection for your lightsaber hand.
Also, if you watched the latest spot from the Acolyte, we got to see Vanessa Rose Light Whip in action, and Master Alan also has a light whip in case you want to.
Light whips. We also get a
it's a lot more dangerous than the real thing.
Oh my goodness. We also get a line from the instructor, who I'm really looking forward to meeting that character. But the instructor's line is, "She was my student," in saying that he's going to go and find her, who she has become an acolyte of the dark side. And the instructor saying she's my student, she's my responsibility. And that is because the path of martial arts, you are learning to become dangerous in a responsible way. And if you make someone dangerous, Like as a teacher, that's your job, is to find somebody and know that you can trust them before you make them too dangerous for them to be stopped. And then if you are incorrect in your judgment of that individual, then you made them. It's your responsibility to go back and take the tools back that you gave them. And so hearing that from an instructor, because up to this point we haven't heard a single Jedi talk about their fallen students in that context. Like, and so like having somebody do that was one of those moments for me where it was just like, there we go.
Yeah, I'm super excited.
Maybe we had a martial artist in the writer's room, maybe because the person that
We
fell
had
is
someone
not
who hadn't seen
Anakin.
Star Wars before.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where it came from.
Pearl clutching. Well, maybe it's because the villain in question isn't Anakin, and we don't have to treat him with mittens. Like,
Yeah.
I am still convinced that the reason that we haven't had a name drop for Padme at this point is because, like, there's not a way to talk about Anakin post prequels, or excuse me, talk about Padme post prequels without, like, having to talk about the way that he was so directly harmful. Like, and that's anyway.
Choco.
Guys,
final-
thank you.
final
Thank you
words.
very much.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry. Also, are you still running the D&D game?
Oh yeah, the Better Than a Stick game is here on my YouTube. We're recording. I've got a handful of people in this game for the next season. I've got some ideas, and I will contact you guys about that because I think you're gonna like my plan. And we may be in a position where we need some more cast people.
Absolutely. Always down.
You were some of the very first people to invite me to participate when I was first coming up, and so now that I am almost in the same ballpark of following that you guys are, like, it's like, hey, let's I got this thing. Come here.
Come here.
The rising tide raises all ships.
I want to play role-playing games with you. Do you have dice?
Yes, I have like 7
I got
sets
so
of
much dice.
I've been waiting,
It gets out of hand.
like we were in like a time period really quickly before we end this. We were in a time period where we were like D&D was about everything in our prognosis, and so I bought a dice tray. I bought like 7 sets of die, and just
All the
like
things.
nothing happened. Just been sitting here. I want to roll dice. Damn it!
I wish I discovered this, like, in the pandemic. You know what I mean? Not end of it. Now I have to work and stuff. Yeah. But
So much harder to
that being
schedule.
said, things have cleared up for me a lot. So yeah, just keep us posted.
I'll let you know.
And then, and yeah, thank you everyone for being here. We always appreciate it. Everyone, check out the book, The Living Force, by John Jackson Miller. It's a new book that came out. It takes place, right before the prequels, and I like to think of it as an unofficial trilogy between this book, between Master and Apprentice, and between I also say Brotherhood. They feel connected. But yeah, check it out. Thank you, everyone.
Living
See you
Force
next week.
and done. Added to.
Thank you
That was
to
the part.
Master Allen and everyone else. I will end this episode by recalling my one of my highlights for the first use of my dice, and that was to interrupt Choco's diplomatic measures and shoot a boss in the eyes.
There you go.
But that's it. On to the next one.
It doesn't sound like
for
the Jedi
life.
way.
We are all the Dyad.
May the Force be with you always.
May the Force be with you.